Hi, it's been a while. Far too long, actually. I think my last video was January of this year, and we're now in August. So, 6 months plus. Unfortunately, a couple of things happened at the start of the year that weren't overly pleasant and distracting, and kind of, well, A, they meant I wasn't reading much for the first few months of the year. And also, I just got out of the habit of kind of the routine of making these videos and uploading and all of that. So I'm a little bit annoyed at myself, actually. The last couple of months I've been back on my reading and been quite prolific with it. For me, I'm not a quick reader, but for me, I've got through a good few. And I probably could have been doing videos, but I just hadn't got back to that kind of routine, as I say. So this is my attempt to get back to it. And my thoughts for the first couple of videos back, I thought I'd talk to you today about 10 books I've read since the last video went up. And then next time we'll maybe look at some of the books I've picked up in the last few months. My wife and I have really stepped up our kind of game, going to car boot sales and charity shops, trying to pick up cheap second-hand books. And we have done a lot of that. So shelves are kind of fit for bursting. But there's some cool ones that I'm looking forward to reading that maybe I'll go through in the next video, as I say. But for today, yeah, let's talk about 10 books I've read. Since the last video, there is a real kind of diversity of quality here for me. Let's first of all talk about, if you've seen previous videos of mine, you may not be surprised to hear that 4 of these 10 books are by the same author. So I did a video a while back about Stephen King and my kind of attempt to read all of his books chronologically, in terms of release dates, original release date. So last time out, we had just got to the point where I was going to start Christine. This one. And I think I said at the time, the premise of this, I was not overly keen on. I've loved the majority of Stephen King's books I've read so far. Christine being about a car that comes to life and terrorizes people. I thought that's maybe not the most compelling hook, but surprise, surprise, once I started reading this, I thought it was absolutely superb. Again, very, very few of the Stephen King books I've read so far, of his early stuff, have I not thought were kind of really, really quite brilliant. And this one really got his hooks into me again. Yeah, it's a slightly silly premise, but it's really done very well. I don't want to say too much. Again, if there's anyone watching that's planning on reading any of these books, I don't want to go kind of too far into spoiler territory. But yeah, this is about a young man who buys this kind of beat up car from a strange man. And yeah, his personality starts changing after he gets the car. Odd things start happening with the car. Yeah, I won't say too much, but although that probably doesn't, I'm probably not selling it to you with that kind of odd description. But yeah, this was really good. Again, not a quick one to get through for me. 600-700 pages, I think. But it really kept me going and wanted me to kind of get through to the end and see what happened. And yeah, Stephen King's often kind of criticised for endings. I don't know if maybe in his later books a little bit. Sort of once you got into the sort of 90s and 2000s, I'm still firmly in early to mid 80s territory here, I think. But yeah, I thought this one did the trick brilliantly. The next King I read was Pet Sematary. So this is a book that I've not read before, but I kind of knew the premise, right? So again, don't want to spoil it, but it's about a family that move into a new home. And they get on well with their neighbours, and the neighbour starts to talk about different elements of the place they've moved into. One of them being this pet cemetery that is placed down a trail and up quite tricky terrain, hard to get to. And yeah, I knew the rough premise of what was special about this pet cemetery. And because of that and the characters in the book, I knew where this was going quite early on. But again, I found it gripping, despite kind of knowing what was going to happen. Really, really enjoyed it. Really quite horrific last third. Yeah, very, very good indeed. I wouldn't say it is... Again, this is built up as a lot of Stephen King's fans' favourite book, or well up there anyway with The Stand and what have you. And The Stand I absolutely adored and is well up there for me. I wouldn't say this is very top King for me so far, but it might be that thing of having high expectations because, as I say, a lot of Stephen King fans seem to love this book and rank it very, very highly. So it wasn't quite there for me, but it might have been because of those high expectations. Not sure. One Stephen King book I did read after that, which was definitely kind of middling fare for me, was Cycle of the Werewolf. Obviously a very short, quick read. Premise around this generally is it's set, there are 12 sections based on the months of the year, and it's a year in the life of this, the place where it's set. And it, as the title will give away, this is absolutely not spoiler territory. There is a werewolf amongst the people that live there. I cottoned on to who it was going to be very, very quickly. And yes, it was who I thought it was going to be. There wasn't a huge amount of surprise in it because of that. So yeah, not one I would recommend for first-time King readers, I would say. It was perfectly fine, but not top of the tree as far as I'm concerned. However, the book that came out after that was a collaboration with British author Peter Straub. Peter Straub. The Talisman. Now, I did another video a little while back about the fantasy genre and how I've always struggled to get into it. I find it a little bit intimidating. I knew this was fantasy. I had attempted to read this when I was younger. When I was younger, both of my older brothers read a lot of Stephen King, and I was kind of, I really want to read some, trying to emulate my brothers. But they were kind of reading it and properly horrific stuff, which wouldn't have been suitable for me back then. And actually, having read this, some of the stuff in this wouldn't have been suitable for me either. But this was recommended to me by one of my brothers that this might be the one for me to go for. And I think I just struggled to get properly into it when I was younger. I read a bit and didn't get into it because I recognised the first few chapters of this. And I think I might have fallen off as soon as the kind of fantasy element came in. So the premise of this is we're following a young boy whose mother is not well, and he meets a kind of kind but strange guy as he's out and about walking in this new place they've moved to. And this guy indicates to him that there's this kind of huge quest that he needs to go on. And kind of almost flip between worlds, between proper present day. Sorry, it's not a time shift. I shouldn't say present day. Kind of reality as he knows it, and this kind of almost dreamlike, otherworldly place that he can flip between. And it's about the boy kind of taking on that quest and trying to effectively find the talisman, this artifact that he's told will help make his mother better. Yeah, so fantasy, like I say, is something that I struggle with, and I was concerned again as soon as you kind of got into the fantasy elements of this that it might be a struggle. I think I sometimes struggle with my imagination because I've watched some fantasy stuff on TV, and obviously it's all laid out for you and what have you, and I can follow. I think sometimes maybe it's a lack of imagination on my part, and I've struggled in the past, but this absolutely drew me in. The fantasy stuff, as soon as I got over that initial kind of mental hurdle, I was in. And I think the fact that kind of there were sections where you kind of flip between that world and this kind of normal reality kind of helped it be grounded for me. But this is kind of really made me feel like I am enabled to go and read some more out and out fantasy now. So I hope I do that. There's a bunch of Terry Pratchett I want to read, a bunch of others in that video I mentioned. So Joe Abercrombie, Scott Lynch, a number of fantasy authors that I would like to read. But yeah, The Talisman, another biggie, which I finished reading quite recently, actually. But yeah, really, really good. Really good indeed. And this is well up there with the Stephen King stuff I've read so far, with Salem's Lot and The Stand, both absolutely amazing. A few others as well. But yeah, very, very good indeed. The next Stephen King I will take on is Thinner. One of the books he wrote as Richard Bachman. That's a shorter book, so I should get through that quite soon and report back on that one. Okay, so that's 4 of the books I've read since the last video. 3 of the other ones are also by the same author. So this is a pure kind of nostalgia trip for me. Something I did read when I was young is The Secret Diary of Adrian Mole, aged 13 3/4. So that makes it sound like an out-and-out children's book. It's not really. It is written kind of with knowing nods for adult readers about things that kids kind of misunderstand and their priorities at this kind of age and what have you. I remembered really enjoying this when I was younger. This and the second book, which is called The Growing Pains of Adrian Mole. And I enjoyed them because of that, I think, this time. They are a diary format, as the title of the first one would suggest. So you get kind of just over a year in his life in each book, I think. Trials and tribulations at school, first love, dealing with his parents' rocky relationship, his wider family, and other friends. And it's amusing, but I would say not amazing. I couldn't, for someone who doesn't have that nostalgia factor, I don't think I would say you must read these. And then I have also collected, there are, I think, 4 or 5 other books in this series that I never read when I was younger. A, because they wouldn't have been out at that point, some of them. Because Sue Townsend wrote a number of books about this character, Adrian Mole, because I think it was one of the best-selling books in the UK in the early 80s, the first book. And she's kind of followed him through his life as he gets older and has new concerns and situations to deal with. The third book I'd never read is called The True Confessions of Adrian Albert Mole. I was really disappointed with this one. I didn't think it was amusing anyway as the first couple. And actually, you only get about 70 pages of his diary in this one. Then you get diary entries from Sue Townsend herself, talking about a holiday she's been on. And then there's kind of a parody of Margaret Thatcher, the old UK Prime Minister from the early 80s, doing a diary of hers from when she was a teenager. So while I understood some of the references, most of the references, I think, I was very young when she was in power. And although I know the general issues a lot of people had with her, yeah, there's probably some stuff in this that kind of flew over my head. But yeah, an odd one, really. I was expecting another book full of diary entries from Adrian Mole, and it didn't quite turn out that way. Yeah, it was disappointing overall, to be honest, and I'm kind of a little bit concerned about the others off the back of it, but I will persevere. And if it means we end up getting rid of these books at the end, then, as I say, there have been a lot of incomings over the past weeks and months, so at least we will make space for them. But yeah, not my favourites. Talking of books that I found disappointing. Oof. All My Friends Are Superheroes is this book, which I picked up years and years ago. Yeah, the premise is it's about a guy who is engaged to a superhero and is around lots of other superheroes. And he has had... I think his fiance has had a run-in with a supervillain, or maybe a jealous ex-superhero boyfriend. It's a little while since I've read this, so forgive me. Either way, the upshot is that she has been hypnotized so that she cannot see her fiance, or hear him, or smell him. You know, she doesn't know he's around, even though he's there all the time, and he's trying to get through to her and kind of break this spell. I kind of like the premise when I read the back, but I found this really irritating. I found it really irritating. Yeah, it was kind of too quirky for me, a little bit too pleased with itself. And the actual kind of stakes in this, that she thinks he's left her. So she's booked a plane ticket. She's gonna fly off and start a new life, I think, is the idea. But yeah, it just didn't follow through for me. So I'm not articulating myself very well, but yeah, not probably the book I enjoyed the least since I've started making these videos. It had to happen, I suppose. I sometimes think I'm too kind of glowing about the majority of books I read, that some people might be a bit more nuanced and kind of say, oh, well, these were the problems with it. I kind of go on vibes a little bit, I suppose, and what was my entertainment value, rather than and kind of getting too deep in the weeds. But maybe that will come the more I do these videos and the better I get at this. But yeah, this was not a favourite, unfortunately. 8 down. Okay. Right, this is a book by Matt Haig called The Humans. This is a book that came very heavily recommended. My wife really, really enjoyed this book. A good friend of mine really, really enjoyed this book. And again, I think what might have happened, let me make it clear. I enjoyed this book. I did enjoy this book, but I didn't love this book. And I think that's what I expected, given the glowing praise I'd heard beforehand. The premise of this is a professor he wakes up and essentially has amnesia, doesn't know where he is. That's not true. Forget that. He wakes up, doesn't know who he is, not amnesia, doesn't know who he is, and slowly learns that he is an alien who has taken over this person's body or replaced this person. That's right. The person who he is supposed to, who looks exactly like, sounds exactly like, acts exactly like, in the most part, has been abducted by aliens, and he's been sent down to replace them and carry out a certain mission, which I won't go into for spoiler territory. And yes, he has to kind of navigate life, not really knowing how humans interact with each other, carrying out this guy's day-to-day life without kind of people suspecting what's going on. The reason I mentioned amnesia at the start, I think there is obviously a kind of question is has the guy had a breakdown and he thinks he's an alien? Is it actually an alien? What's the whole deal here? Yeah, it was a really interesting book, actually, and I did really enjoy it. And I think if I'd gone into this knowing nothing about it, or even someone had said, yeah, it's okay, perhaps give it a go if you've got nothing else to read, kind of thing. If I'd then read it, I think I would have come away feeling much, much more enthusiastic about it. So again, I think I'm affected too much by hype. I find it in other forms of media as well, like video games and films and TV shows and stuff. Kind of almost prepare myself. I don't know what it is internally, that if I'm told something's absolutely amazing, I'll often come away thinking, it's not quite as good as people were saying. And I think that's a me problem that I need to work on, perhaps, because this was perfectly good. But I think I just came away thinking, because we've got a couple of other Matt Haigs, and I was thinking, oh, well, if I love this as much as everyone says I will, I'll definitely read the others sooner rather than later. And I will read the others, but yeah, not top of my priority list off the back of it. But still a fun book. The Humans by Matt Haig. And the final book I want to talk about is a book called Let the Right One In, by John Ajvide Lindqvist. I'm sure you know what this is. There have been films made of this book. There has been a TV series made of this book. I hadn't watched any of those things before reading this. This is the story of a young boy who lives with his mother and strikes up a friendship with somebody who moves in next door, who starts to show vampiric tendencies, shall we say. And it follows the journey of these two main characters. Now, this kind of will go against what I said before. I had heard very good things about this, and clearly enough people enjoyed it. And I know people rave about the original Scandinavian film that was made off the back of this, and a whole bunch of other people love the American remake. This was amazing. Absolutely amazing. Really, really compelling. Kind of immediately got drawn into the lives of these two young characters and the surrounding characters as well. Again, not a quick read for me. I'm a relatively slow reader, but very, very glad I stayed the course with this. This was absolutely superb. And if you are into, I was about to say horror, it's not. There are certainly genuinely horrific sections in this, but for a book that touches on the themes of vampires, it, large sections of this aren't really to do with horror. It's more about kind of navigating situations that are difficult or troubling, and it's a human story, really, but with these extra elements in there. And yeah, I found it incredibly gripping. I was really invested in what was going to happen to these characters. Thought it was absolutely wonderful. Yeah, I've watched the original film now. I'm going to watch the remake and the TV show as well. And I have another book by Lindqvist as well, and I can't for the life of me remember what it's called, but that is one I will absolutely read soon. Because, yeah, Let the Right One In very, very, very much lives up to the hype. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. Okay, I've been prattling on for far too long, so I'm going to leave it there. But thank you very much for watching. I really, really appreciate it. If you are somebody who used to watch the original videos and you've jumped on this one, thank you very much. If you're new, welcome. I very much appreciate it. If you've got any thoughts on any of these books or other books by the authors I've mentioned, please do drop a note in the comments. Always up for recommendations or thoughts. I really, really appreciate that. But yeah, thank you for watching. I'll be back next time, as I say, with a video on some of the books I've picked up in recent weeks and months. Kind of a book haul video, and maybe talk about some of the stuff I'm planning to read next. But for now, thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.